All right. Good morning, fifth grade, or good afternoon, I guess, wherever we're at. I'm doing this a little different today for lesson 1-4. I really need to point some things out in a textbook. So hi, here I am. Hello. Point some things out in the textbook and do some things on paper. So we're going to kind of go over it this way today for lesson 1-4 with decimal place value. So here's our place value chart, and it's the same one that you have on your packet too. So hopefully you have your packet out and you're open to 1-4 decimal place value, and you can see here on this chart that you have the ones place. We've already talked about tenths, hundredths, and thousands. So it's kind of a little bit of review, and we're going to kind of add some things all together when we talk about decimal place value today. So when we did whole numbers, we did standard form, expanded form, word form. We're going to talk about those same three with decimal place value. So what you have here on your packet is that same number, 0.245. Now, we should know how to say that properly from our last lesson. Remember, we read the number as a whole. So this is number 245, and then we say the place value of where this last digit is. So this number would be 245 thousandths, and we've talked several times about making sure we get that THS. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. When they come to the right of the decimal, they've got to have that THS there. And is there a oneths place? No. Hopefully you said no loud and proud. No oneths place. Okay, so here we go. So on our balloons, you need to try to think of these on your own, and then you can put them on the packet, and you can check yourself with your textbook. So standard form, remember standard form just means written as a number. So when I'm writing standard form, let me grab a pen when I write it on here so you can see. It would just be 0.245. Okay, that's just number form. Expanded form is going to be a little different, okay? And you can see that here, and you're going to write that on the balloon as well, but let's talk about it, okay? We have the 2 in the tenths place, so that's my first digit. Then I have a 4 in the hundredths place. So don't think, let me grab my whiteboard. For that 4, okay, so we said for the 2, I've got 0.2. Now for the 4, you can't write 0.4 because like we said, that 4 is in the hundredths place, not the tenths place. So you have to put a 0 in the tenths place and the 4 in the hundredths place. So of course, then what am I going to have to do with the 5? I'm going to have to put the 5 in the thousandths place because that's where it is in the number. And just like expanded form with my whole numbers, I only have one digit, okay? Everything else is a 0, but it's really important that those zeros go in the right place so that you got everything in the correct place value, okay? Okay, so you can copy that from the textbook into your balloon and really think about that as you're doing that and why that makes sense. And then word form, okay, we've already talked about this a little bit already, but remember, I say this is a number and I say that last place value, so 245 thousandths, and you can see that's what it says here, 245 thousandths. So pause the video, take a minute, and put that in your word form bubble. So you would have expanded form and word form all filled out on there. Pause the video for a minute and go ahead and do that. Then I also want you to pause a minute and I want you to try the U-Try. Okay, pause the video, do standard form, expanded form, word form, and then turn it back on and we'll do that together. Okay, let's look at the U-Try, okay? Standard form, remember that just means number form. Now you have a test coming up before too long, and when you see that on the test, write this number in standard form. I'm not going to tell you what that is, okay? That's part of the vocabulary, that's part of what you need to know for the test. So be sure you're thinking and remembering that standard form means written as a number. Okay, expanded form. All right, take a look at your example that you have in the balloon to kind of help you follow along and see what to do. So my first one would be 3/10, 0.3. You can see it's in the tenths place. My next digit is a 7 and it's in the hundredths place, so it's going to look like that. My next digit is a 2 and it's in the thousandths place. So this would be my expanded form. I'm just breaking this number up into an addition problem with its correct place value. All right, word form. Remember what I have to do? Read it as a number, 372, and add that last place value word, which would be thousandths. So 372 thousandths. And get that on there. Okay? I don't know why I put a period. I don't need a period. 372 thousandths. All right? Okay, let's look back at your textbook. And we're going to look at this page now for a couple minutes. Okay, this another example part. Equivalent decimals means they name the same amount. And you have that on your notes as well. It says that right here. Equivalent decimals names the same amount. So it's two different numbers that say the same thing. We talked about this the other day when we talked about making our equivalent, making a fraction into a decimal. We were dividing, and we said the number 1 is the same as 1.0. Those are the same, different way of saying the same thing. If you ate one pizza and you ate 1.0 pizzas, you ate the same amount of pizza. So that's what we're looking at here. So equivalent decimals name the same amount. Name two other decimals equivalent to 1 4/10. Okay? Well, 1 4/10 is the same as 1 40 hundredths. And you might be like, whoa, 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 what are you talking about? Look at the picture, okay? Here's one whole, okay? You got to think of those base 10 blocks. This is one of those flat pieces, okay? They're usually orange. So here's my one whole. And here's that one flat split up into 100 little squares. Each of these little squares is a hundredth. We know that because we've talked about it here. Oops. Okay, we talked about our tenths and our hundredths here. So here is, if you count those little tiny boxes, there's 40 of them. So that's why they're saying this would be 1 40 hundredths. Now, here's the thing though. Each row, each column, I guess is the correct word, each column up and down, sorry, let me get a drink of water. I've got a frog in my throat, and I would pause the video, but my phone doesn't let me do that. Okay, so I've got each column here, which equals a tenth. Okay, all right, I'm going to keep talking, but I'm also getting out a cough drop. So if you hear me rustling around, that's what I'm doing. All right, so each row is each column up and down is a tenth. So how many columns do I have? Each column is a tenth, and I have 4 of them. So here's 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10. And they show that in this little picture, okay? How each row is a tenth. So that's why I can say I also have 1 4/10. So 1 4/10 and 1 40 hundredths are the same amount, okay? If you ate 1 4/10 pizza, you ate the same amount as if you ate 1 40 hundredths pizza. They're equal. Equal means equivalent. All right. And just like we said when we were dividing the other day, the bottom line is I can add as many zeros as I want to the end of a decimal number. It doesn't change the value. All right. So 1.4 is the same as 1.40 is the same as 1.400. It'd be the same thing as 1.4000000. They're all equal. They're all naming the same amount. Okay. So that's what that picture is describing here. All right. So that's what this says on your note packet. You can add as many zeros to the end as you want. The value is the same. It just has to be at the very end. Okay? All right. This page is bonus. This lesson's a bonus. We have a back. All right. So flip your packet over. We got to look at this back part. We talked about this a little bit with whole numbers, but not as much with decimal numbers. Okay? So now we've been looking at numbers kind of like this. Okay, they really don't have anything in the ones place, and here's our, our decimal part. But what happens when we put our two concepts from this chapter together? Our large whole numbers and a decimal. Okay, and that's where we have to start heading next when we're going through this chapter. So what I would do first is focus on this whole number part. Forget about the decimal part. If I asked you to write this number in word form, what would we look at? Remember, this is our ones period, our thousands period, and our millions period. So when I read that whole number, I'm going to read 123 million. Remember, I read each part independently, and then I say that period name when I get to the comma. So 123 million, 456,000, 789. All right, let's do that part together. See if you can read it with me, just that part. 123,456,789. Now we're going to add the decimal part on. We've talked about this several times. When I write word form or I say a number correctly, that decimal I say and. So I would say and remember we've talked about this already, 123 thousandths. All right, let's put it all together. 123,456,789 and 123 thousandths. And you can see I have that here. You only put the and in when you write word form when there's a decimal. Sometimes when we are being casual and we say a number, we'll say 123 million and 456. We can't do that when in proper math. Okay, the and only goes where there's a decimal. All right. Now, I want to talk about place versus value. We've talked about this a little bit when we were doing whole numbers and we were doing it on the parking lot with chalk. And if you remember, I was having you underline a digit and I was asking you what place the digit was in and what was its value. So those are two different things. So take a look. I want to jump down to the bottom first. Place means the name of the place the digit is in. Value is how much that digit is worth in that place. Okay? So I think the best way to explain this is to jump in and do a couple examples. So name the place and value of the underlined digit. So you're going to fill these in as you do this with me, okay? So with a 4, what place is it in? Okay? So remember, here's my ones period and my thousands period. And we said in each period we have a ones, tens, hundreds, ones, tens, hundreds. So what place is this? This is the hundred thousands place. 100,000s place, okay? Now, what is its value? What is its value is that digit and everything after it becomes a 0. It's a 4 and it's in the 100,000s place. So its value is 400,000. Okay? If this digit were a 6, its value would be 600,000. If this value were an 8, if this digit were an 8, its value would be 800,000. Okay? So I have to look at what place it's in and then put that digit there. Okay. The 2, see if you can figure this out first. What place is that 2 in? What value is that 2? Okay, well, what place is it in? It is in the tens place. Okay, and what is the value if I have 2 in the tens place? It's worth 20. I have to put a 2 in the tens place, and everything after it becomes a 0. Now, some kids want to know, can you do this? Can you add that at the end, make everything a 0 after the decimal? Well, perfect that we are learning about that today. Remember, I can add as many zeros as I want to the end of a decimal number. It doesn't change the value. So you can write it this way if you want, or you could just write 20. Either answer would be correct, okay? Because they're both worth 20. All right, the 8, see if you can do it. It's a little trickier because it's the decimal. What place is that? Remember, no ones place. That is the hundredths place. And what is its value? Its value is 8 hundredths. Okay? So that is a little bit of a tricky part. Some kids this makes total sense and it's like, yep, Mrs. Willard, I get it. Why are you saying this is tricky? This isn't hard. Some kids, this is a little bit tricky. So if this is tricky for you, remember that growth mindset. Not, I can't do this. I can't do this yet. Okay? We're going to work on it. You're going to get there. It just takes practice. This is like anything else, math. You have to practice it. And that's why we have class. Yay, we get to practice. Okay. So that's your packet. I want to look at this paper really quick because we're going to do this in class, but for some of us that aren't in class, I want to go over it a little bit. This is going to help us practice this idea of equivalent decimals. So let's take a look and we'll do probably 2 together and then I'm going to let you do the rest of them on your own. So if I have 2 tenths, okay, and what I'm going to ask you to do is shade in 2 tenths. Remember, each column is a tenth. So if I shade in 2 columns, that's 2 tenths. So here I've shaded in 2 tenths. Well, how many hundredths is that? Remember, each little individual box is a hundredth. So there's 10 in a row. So 10, 20. So 2 tenths or 20 hundredths. Those are equivalent amounts. Now we're going to put those same fraction numbers in decimal form. Here's 2 tenths. What would 20 hundredths look like as a decimal? It would look like this. So you have 4 values here that all are naming this amount in the picture. 2 tenths, 20 hundredths, 2 tenths, 20 hundredths, all naming that amount. They're all equivalent. Okay? All right, we're going to do one more together. This time I gave you this value, 30 hundredths. Well, 30 hundredths would be 30 of these little boxes. So I'm going to color in 3 rows because that would be 30 little boxes. 3 columns. I keep saying rows and columns, and they're not the same in math. Okay, so there's 3 columns, all right? So that would be 30 of these little boxes. Now, how many tenths would that be? Remember, here's tenths is a row. So 1 row, column, 1 column, 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns. So that would be 3 tenths, okay? 3 tenths. Now, see if you can put those 2 fraction forms into decimal form. Try that. Pause it and give it a shot. Okay. 3 tenths. Remember, they sound the same to your ears, so think about what that would look like as a decimal. 30 hundredths. What would 30 hundredths look like as a decimal? Yeah, like that. Okay, so if you're doing it at home, try the rest of these, okay? Like I said, you can see I didn't color super neatly. We're just shading quickly. It's just an extra practice page to help us get that idea of equivalent decimals. All right, I hope we're having a great day and have a wonderful, I was going to say weekend, because right now it's Friday, but it's Friday for me. I'm sure it's not Friday when you're actually watching this video, but have a wonderful day. All right, I missed you guys, and I'll see you soon. Bye.